Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of Steelers Stat Geek. This is Behind the Steel Curtain Deputy Editor Dave Schofield coming at you from a different location. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I also want to say that with me, once again, per usual, as usual, the standard has now become the standard. My big brother, Rich. Rich, how's it going?
Hey, it's going. Man, I can tell you're on a different location or been having too much fun or something because, you're extra peppy this evening.
I just came out of the pool within the last, I don't know what time is it, within the last 40 minutes. So in case you guys are wondering, I wish it was light outside, because if it was light outside through these glass doors behind me, those of you watching on YouTube, you would see the beautiful Atlantic Ocean from 11 stories up. And then just on the one side, you would see the lights of Myrtle Beach. I'm coming at you from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina this week, as the family and I decided to have a nice little spring break. So here we are. That's why it took us a little bit later to get started. I had to figure out my different setup. I'm hoping everything is coming through clear. I appear to have really good signal. I just had to figure out how I could get the mic and everything else all set up. And luckily, my big bro was pretty patient with me as things are going on. Wes already says that he hates me, probably because I'm on location. But man, it was supposed to rain all day today, and it didn't rain, so it was really good. So here we are. I'm ready to talk Steelers because I've kind of had a little bit of a break from thinking about the Steelers with a lot of stuff going on here. So we got I've been trying to keep up with all the news as I usually do. And one thing I know that's happened with the Steelers recently is there was a report from ESPN that it appeared that the Steelers are going to franchise tag Bud Dupree. A lot of people said, tell us something we didn't already know. It was never going to be a question of if the Steelers were going to franchise Bud Dupree. It was going to be if the Steelers were going to franchise.
Yep.
Wouldn't you agree to that?
I would agree to that. And the other thing I will point out and say, no report from the Steelers on that yet.
Yeah, no, yeah. And until you get a report from the Steelers, nothing's official.
I'm not buying it until the Steelers release that they've placed the tag on Dupree. Then I'll believe it. I'll pick on Kyle since he's not sitting across the. Kyle could have reported that they were going to put the franchise tag on Bud Dupree, and nobody would have thought any different than ESPN saying it. Really,
yeah. It was one of the reporters that was listing out all the reports. I mean, they were just tweeting all the different teams of the report of where they were going to use the franchise tag. I haven't heard any reports yet of anybody using both the franchise and transition. That's something that teams can do in the final year of the CBA. But with a vote coming up soon, hopefully they're thinking that they wouldn't be able to use both of them. So why not? If I was the Steelers, I would not use the tag until the last minute. And for those of you that are listening to this in podcast form, we are recording this live Tuesday night. So the Steelers would have a week and 2 days in order to designate this. They have until next Thursday to use, not just the Steelers, any NFL team, to designate a player under the franchise tag. I brought up in my article about this on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. I brought up in the article, if they use the franchise tag, are they going to use the exclusive or the non-exclusive? Most teams use the non-exclusive. The only player I can think of off the top of my head that anyone's used the exclusive tag on in recent years was Mr. Butt Naked Get Robbed, the former number 26 for the Steelers. I don't know if anyone was last year because the Steelers didn't use the tag, and I didn't care enough about other teams to really look into it. It's generally the non-exclusive tag, which means the player can go out and try to sign with another team if they can't work it out with the team that they're with. But that team's going to have to give up 2 first-round draft picks. And it has been done a couple times in the past. I don't think it's been done under this current CBA, which means the last 9 years. The other times that I remember, Joey Galloway was one, and then another one was a defensive lineman for Carolina.
Sean Gilbert.
You're the man. You got it. The teams
Sorry,
have
that
done
was
it.
actually posted. Actually, someone else. I don't remember who. Someone else did that homework for me on one of your articles earlier today.
That might have been me because I tied it into an old article, but didn't actually.
Maybe it was you. Somebody
Yeah.
tied it in on one of your articles. I don't remember who it was.
Yeah,
So
I'm glad you just remembered because I've had too much going on to remember what I typed in earlier today.
Yep.
So it's I actually, because I did an article about this earlier in the offseason of how it would have been nice if the Steelers would have used the non-exclusive on Bell and let him go try to work out a deal somewhere else, and the Steelers get the first round picks. If it's exclusive, then the team can't talk to anyone else. If it's a transition tag instead, all that gives the original team is a right of first refusal. They don't get compensated in any way if the player leaves, and that player would not be eligible for the to go into the compensatory formula. So they're better off, it's cheaper to do the transition tag. But when you're talking about cheap, next week we're going to do a special salary cap show. As long as everything works out, that we should have a special guest with us that you and I are both really excited about, so we can talk some salary cap. And when it comes to that, the Steelers don't have to be cap compliant when they issue the tag. They have to be cap compliant the beginning of the league year, which is 4 p.m. on March 18th. So they would have they don't have to make the cuts before they tag Dupree. They could tag Dupree, then work around their money in order to get cap compliant by then. And one other thing that I thought about today after everything else was said and done, I'm like, I should have put this in the article. The Steelers could put the franchise tag on Bud Dupree, take that extra week to try to sign him before the 18th. They still have the option to get cap compliant of rescinding the tag. Whatever they would have to do.
Right.
That they could rescind. Now, once you rescind it, you can't put it back. But as Kevin Colbert said, ultimately, anytime the Steelers use the franchise tag, it's going to be to try to have more time to sign that player to a long-term deal. And a long-term deal, even if they're still dealing with the 30% rule, should at least lower somewhat Dupree's first year under the salary cap if they do that. I'm still okay if they decide to let him go. I know they don't really have much of an answer there if he's gone, but I also don't know that he's the answer there if he stays. I don't want him to be a highly paid person who ends up not being the answer either. He did have a great 2020. So in the what have you done for me lately world, you would expect him to do well. But are you okay with them using the franchise tag on Dupree, or what do you think?
I don't know. Part of me would have almost liked to see him use it on Filer, but
they don't have to use it on Filer because Filer's a restricted free agent. They can offer him a tender. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Because the only other person they really could have used it on was Hargrave, but his number would have been a little bit less. But
I don't mind that they use it, but they better sign him.
Yeah.
I don't want him to play out 1 year at whatever $16 gazillion.
$16 gazillion.
Yeah.
And then
walk. It's like no. So just
Well, honestly,
I know that in the past we have used it and then we work hard to get somebody signed. I hope that we're trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. There's a decent chance that the Steelers could be drafting Bud Dupree's replacement this year, even if it's not for another 2 or 3 years. You never know. Just the way things work.
Right.
Because we ultimately know when it really comes down to it, when they're going to pay someone at the position, it's going to be TJ Watt. He's going to be the one who breaks the bank, and the Steelers aren't going to let him go. So that's the deal with Dupree. It looks like they're getting ready to get the CBA out to a vote to the players. There was an article this morning from the one, I can't remember his name. I quote him all the time. That's the CBA guy from ESPN that did another article that told some of the details. Actually, I had a lot of those details already in what I pulled up from something from the NFL. It really does look like all the owners are getting is 17 games, an extra team from each conference in the playoffs, which if you think about it, that's better for the players, especially for maybe not for
that one. See, when I read that one, I looked at that. I was like, that's a wash.
Yeah, that's a wash because, guys like Aaron Rodgers are going to complain about it because they were the 2 seed last year. And they're like, we wouldn't have had a bye. Well, you don't want to buy? Work harder and get the 1 seed. There you go. If you know the rules going in, play by the rules that you know going in, that you only get a bye for the 1 seed. Because like I tell my kids all the time, I have to remind them, when they do, I'm like, okay, you did a good job. But remember, second place is the first loser. So we're going to reward second place for a bye. I'm okay with it just being the number 1 seed. I'm sorry, that was supposed to be kind of funny, but I guess it didn't work out that way. But no, I do pick on my kids about that. Say, yeah, second place is the first loser when they're coming in second place in Mario Kart and stuff like that. So that's a wash. But the other thing is the owners want this year so they can do their TV deal. And I don't know if the owners want the 17th game as much just to have another game. It's all about the money, and the TV networks want the extra game. That's what they want. And they're really, and since that's where the money's coming from, then they say, let's do it. So honestly, the TV networks would take 25 games if the NFL would do it. But that just doesn't make any sense. But the players are getting a lot of things. And like I said before, 56 bullet points. If you look at the article that I outlined it in an article, I took it straight from NFL.com and quoted them. So they are getting like things that, if you think about some of the stuff that players complained about with the last CBA, those weren't even a talking point this time. Players were like, we gave up too much power. We let Roger Goodell make all the decisions. Guess what? Guess who's not making the decisions next year? Roger Goodell. If they sign the CBA, the only thing he gets to do is he gets to decide on things if it is dealing with the integrity of the league. Other kinds of all those other issues, somebody else is dealing with. Really laxed off the how much they're drug testing and the penalties for certain things. I mean, I think they upped the penalty on performance enhancing drugs, but they lowered the penalty on non-performance enhancing drugs, if you understand what I'm saying. What else? I mean, the instant pay raise for 60% of the league is got to be the biggest sticking point by raising the minimum salaries. And they keep going up the whole 10 years. I mean, bottom line is almost every player would be making $1 million a year by the end of the CBA. So that's kind of what to do. Wes wants to know if the CBA eliminates the franchise tags. That is a big negatory. That was a really big issue going in, is that owners still want to keep their best players, and they still want to have the avenue to keep one of their best players every year. So the franchise tags are still there. That was never on the table, but they did change up the 5th year options for rookies. They are now automatically guaranteed for the 5th year once you exercise it, not just for injury. Like that's what happened with Ryan Shazier. They said before the season started, they picked up his 5th year option. He got hurt, couldn't play, still had the full salary. If it wasn't because of injury, but if just because of lack of performance, Steelers could have just cut him and not had to pay him that 5th year salary. Not now, not with the new CBA. If that takes, once you say we want the 5th year option, that's it. And they really changed up how it works, where it's even going to be more expensive, even up as high as a franchise tag. It's all performance based. So that's a big win for the players with the 5th year option stuff that they did for rookies. There's a lot of give and take there. But it was basically the franchise tag stuff wasn't even brought up. So that's a lot of stuff going on there. That's going to be a lot of news here in the next couple of weeks. It's funny because the question I want to ask these players, like I know the Pouncey twins say they're going to put their own money in a fund for players. Hey, we need a lockout. What is it? They still haven't said what they have a problem with, because I think the problem is with the 17th game. I don't think it's what they're getting back in return, because, I mean, they've already cut the number of padded practices almost in half at training camp. They're basically never having these players hit, hardly at all, compared to what they used to. Meaning, I mean,
right,
a padded practice is still a padded practice. But a lot of concessions in those respects. But the thing that the Pouncey twins aren't saying is, you want to say no and you want to lock out, which is funny because you're both just trying to even get through this next season to still be part of the NFL. Mike Pouncey might not ever play again because of his neck injury, and Marquise Pouncey did not have a very good year. Don't know how much time he's got left in the league. So I'm not really sure what's going on. And they're saying It's so terrible, but they're not saying is it all about the 17th game? Because if they're thinking they need to hold out in order to not have a 17th game, there's going to be a 17th game. There's too much money. There's nothing the players are going to do to stop this from happening other than a work stoppage for years. And knowing the NFL, they'll want it so bad, they'll bring in other players at that point. If it comes, I don't see them ever giving up on the 17th game. What do you think?
Oh, no. The 17th game, once they started talking about it, that was one of those that you knew as soon as they could get it out there on the table, it was going to get out there and happen. I think you hit I think you hit your point exactly earlier when you said that 17th game is more about television.
Yeah, it's 100% about the TV deal. It's the money.
Right. It's the money they're going to get in the TV deal, which when you stop and think about it, it's not just the owners getting that money.
It's the players getting that money.
It's the players getting some of that money as well. So there's just going to be too much green to not go that route.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why it's the players have never been in a better situation to get everything they want other than a 17th game.
Oh,
if they think they're not going to get a 17th game, guess what? Okay.
I wanted to catch on there. Wes said he had heard the CBA isn't necessary to add the 17th game.
The
CBA does need the 17th game. It's the change in the playoff format that did not need the CBA.
Exactly. That one, they would like to put it in the CBA, but they think they could do it anyway. Yep. The owners really do when it comes to the playoffs. But yeah, when it's the 17th game, they need that. The players have never been in a better situation to get everything that they're getting out of this deal. It's not going to be as good next year. If they think they're going to take that 17th game off the table, that's not going to happen. And everything else that the union fought for, those 56 points, take away almost all of them. That's what's going to happen if you're going to say, let's not do the 17th game.
Correct.
Yeah.
The players need to get in there and get this CBA because they're getting a lot more than I ever thought they would. If they do not, the CBA that they get next year will not look anywhere near as good as this one. And do you really want to hold out thinking you're going to get more and end up signing for way less? That would be ridiculous if you ask me.
They will never get as much right now as what they have on the table. They won't get as much.
The owners sweetened the deal so much to try to get this in a year early.
Yes, exactly.
They could get,
and it makes it an 11-year deal. That's right. In essence, yeah. So they have the players. I mean, bottom line is the owners are like, we've given everything we can. This is the last thing we'll give you. If not, we go next year. But you're not going to get all this stuff. And if the player reps can actually convey this to the players in the right way, but I'm telling you, the player reps that are for this aren't your high-profile guys. It's the high-profile player reps that are against it. The Aaron Rodgers, the Richard Shermans, those. I mean, with everything that we've seen on social media with Ramon Foster and Cam Hayward, because I don't know if most alternate reps are as involved as what Cam Hayward seems to be. But I think Ramon Foster knows his time with the Steelers is very limited, and that if he wasn't the player rep, he might have already been released. So therefore, Cam Hayward's kind of there ready to step in whenever that happens. But it's just kind of crazy. So that's what it is. I know we've got to get to our show topic, but this was just some good stuff for us to get into. The everyday players have got to look at this and saying we are doing all we can for a 17th game, and for them, the 17th game probably isn't that big of a deal. They're like, that's another chance for me to get out there and earn another paycheck. For the guy that's only going to get 3 years in the league, why not get everything that he can while he can? And that's just how it is. So before we get into the whole thing with salary cap issue, which we'll get next year, a couple things I want to do just to clean it up next year, next week. Next year. I don't know if that'll help us that much. For those of you that might have joined us late, yes, I am on location. I'm coming to you from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Got to rub that into Wes again. So that's why it's a little bit different. But also because of that, just to let you know, we're going to just keep it to one show tonight because with getting everything set up, didn't want to push it by having to do 2 different ones and with all that. So we're going to do with one tonight, but we'll be back to our regular 2-show format next week. So that's just is how it is. Let's look at the focus of where we're going here because we got to do some explaining about what it is that we were going to talk about with the Steelers for next year. When we talk about points of emphasis, these are things that, us as fans can talk about, but ultimately these are going to come down to what the Steelers and the coaching staff are going to decide to be their points of emphasis. Can you think of one of the points of emphasis either last year or the year before that the Steelers, we know that they did, and we could see how things changed because of that?
Well, we saw it this year.
Yes.
I know they emphasized takeaways because we were so bad the year before.
Absolutely. Go after that ball. Always get your hand on the ball. If you're going to wrap up the quarterback for a sack, get your hand at ball level, knock it out, do what you can. And then the things, just doing that could have got them 25 takeaways, let alone a lot of other things going their way, getting them all the way up to 38. Right. So that was a point of emphasis from last year, and look how it turned out. Another point of emphasis I'm going to say from last year was, how about an improved and reliable kicking game, particularly field goal kicking? Point of emphasis, definitely came through on that one. No missed extra points, only 2 missed field goals on the season. One was a bad snap, and the other one was over 50 yards. So that was a big improvement. I'm pretty sure another point of emphasis from last year was probably, and I think we heard it coming through different players that we're used to, was interceptions. Throwing the ball away, because Ben Roethlisberger led the league in interceptions the year before. It was with 16. I'm pretty sure the Steelers had 17 total in 2018 because Josh Dobbs threw 1 in the Raider game. So they wanted to cut down the number of interceptions. Now, that didn't happen. They actually threw 2 more than they did the year before. But there was other circumstances beyond that you also weren't expecting those interceptions to be coming from Mason Rudolph. And there's no way when the season started that the Steelers expected to have interceptions coming from Devlin Hodges. So that's just how it is. So I think of a couple years ago where a point of emphasis was red zone efficiency 2 years ago. That was a point of emphasis, better in the red zone. And then in 2018, when they had that emphasis, they were the number 1 red zone team in the NFL. Another one right around the same time was missed tackles, reducing your missed tackles, which over the last couple seasons, if you've noticed from what it was in years past, that had really gone down. So when the Steelers emphasize something, more often than not, you see an improvement. So if you were on the Steelers coaching staff, and you're like, all right, let's come up with 3 points of emphasis for our 2020 team. These are things that we need to improve on. Tangible things that we can go out and make sure we do better. You'll want to give me one. Philip keeps saying we got to get in the touchdown zone. Oh yeah, that's true, but it's a little bit more than that. We've really got to, focus these points of emphasis.
I think that
is a good line.
I think that his improves if you go to the one that I told you about earlier. That just over the past several weeks, I keep saying we need to do a better job running the football. I don't say we have to run it ton. Well, some of our games we needed to run it more, but we have to be more efficient in running the football.
Absolutely. And I think there's one thing that's going to help, which, some of these things, what people are going to say are ways to improve the points of emphasis. Like Steeler fan 74, here we go. We'll bring it up. He said not being predictable in offense. Absolutely. That's going to help come to get to that improved running game. So if you have a focus on, We want to be able to run the football when we want to run the football. That's going to be really good. Before we go on anymore, we did get a super chat question a little bit. I don't want it to a little bit ago. Don't want it to go completely away. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, if you are with us live on YouTube right now, you can type in a comment. And then there's a little dollar sign down there. You hit that dollar sign, donate any amount you want to the show, and it will highlight your comment, and we will definitely bring it up. You do not have to donate to the show. It is fine. Don't feel like you need to do it, because the biggest thing you can do for us is go in and like the video. And for those of you listening in podcast form, give that good rating. But Youngin brought up a good one. Well, I don't know if it's a good one yet or not. We'll see. $5 in the tip jar. Said, if Shazier goes to coaching staff for the 2020 season, is he still eligible to sign as a player in 2021? Or is there a rule against that? To my understanding, there is not.
Especially if he never retires, put in his retirement paperwork.
Exactly. But I don't know. Can you become a coach without being a retired,
filing the retired?
But not all coaches were players in the first place. So
we see guys pull that and end up back on the field anyway. Jason Witten.
Where he came out and went in the booth and went back and all that. Hey, we talked about TV money. We know TV is where all the money is. I mean, if they're going to pay $17 million a year for Tony Romo, that's telling you that's where the money is. But when it comes to Shazier, I don't know that they're going to do it that way. I don't know that they will. I'm not saying that they can't. I just don't know that they won't. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, it's.
I think they'll keep him around.
I think we don't. I don't know enough about what's going on with Shazier to say. That's what makes it tough for me to try to get inside of, Kevin Colbert's or somebody else's head on how they want to deal with him. I don't know enough about what's going on with Shazier. Is there a chance Shazier could play again, or are his playing days done? If his playing days are done, get him on the coaching staff. Boom, we're good. There's no questions about it.
Yes.
Otherwise, the question is if he or somebody, ever wants to play again, then I think it gets a little more tricky about what you do with him.
Yes. You don't want to squash the dream.
No. Especially for a guy that has fought back as hard as he has fought.
Yes.
So
I don't think he's ever realistically, he's never going to be the player he was. The question is, could he be a serviceable backup special teams guy? Could he get to there? I don't know. Anytime he posts a workout, it's been a while since I've seen one. He's doing things that I never thought he would be able to do again. I'm never going to count the guy out, but the window in the NFL is very small for most people. So I just say, I trust the Steelers front office to do the right thing.
Correct.
That's bottom line. So, all right, let's go back to points of emphasis. You say run the ball. Run the ball. I think you were spot on there. Let's say this. I think that the Steelers, this is a big one for me, and I have some numbers to back it up because it's a stat geek, so we have to do some numbers. They need to focus on, I got to give a disclaimer. I'm going to give a Dave answer.
Oh, gee whiz.
Before I say this, all these things, we can't just assume that Ben Roethlisberger is the fix to everything. Okay. It could be, but we should not just assume that. So that's why you still need to have these points of emphasis. So a point of emphasis that I think they need to have for 2020 is reducing the number of 3-and-outs. Because that was brought up as a comment on one of our past shows. And I said to the person, that's a great point. I'm going to look it up. So I did. I looked up the Steelers 3-and-outs for basically the last 20 years, going back to the year 2000. And when I say 3-and-out, that's not even a play. Let's say they had to get the ball on first down and there's let's say defensive holding, so there's no play and they get a first down and then they start over again, don't even count that. 0 first downs, 3 plays, punt. It's got to be that formula. I calculated them all. How many do you think they had this year?
8,000.
8,000 felt like it, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it was more than what they had turnovers, and they had 38 turnovers. So it was 41 3 and outs, which was up from 28 in 2018 and 24 in 2017. Now that was a 2-year low for them. That was something they had been really good at. But the year before that was 35, 31. To get to the 40s, you have to go all the way back to 2013, which was another year they didn't make the playoffs, where they had 46 3 and outs. And then in 2012, the year before, when they didn't make the playoffs, they had 44 3 and outs. The Steelers have only ever had one time in the past 20 years where they had more than 43 and outs in a season. Well, I shouldn't say more than 40 because they had exactly 40 3 and outs in a season, and they made the playoffs. And that was 2008 when they won the Super Bowl. They had a lot of 3 and outs that year. But then again, remember, they were relying heavily on their defense. Another number I wanted to go along with this, but I didn't have it in front of me because I couldn't look it up here, is how does that equate to time of possession? We know it kills it.
Right.
So if you could say, do a better time of possession, or you could really get focused to say reducing our number of 3 and outs, which I think is a really good thing to do. So we want to run the ball better. We want to reduce the number of 0 first downs on a drive before we punt. That didn't even take into account drives where the Steelers turned the ball over in the first 3 plays. Those weren't even accounted in there. And I know they had a couple of them. So hopefully, you don't want to take for granted that Ben Roethlisberger is the fix for that. You still want to emphasize it because then it'll still improve. So, but I do think that's going to help it improve naturally. Anything else you think would be a good point of emphasis for the year? I honestly, I can't really think of anything for defense.
No, because our tackling's much improved. We've been we turned the ball over. We got sacks. Nothing else defensively coming up. Offensively, after last year, I'd like to see us get back into looking at that red zone again.
Yeah,
or potentially, because it was so bad last year, points off of turnovers.
Yes, you nailed it.
There you go.
I've gone back. And my Tomlin Tuesday articles, some are more popular than others, where I'm reliving all of his press conferences. And that was a big deal that the Steelers had a problem with early in the season. Coach Tomlin was pounding that at the press conference, several press conferences in a row, mainly with that San Francisco game, because they got 5 takeaways. They turned it into 6 points. They had 2 turnovers and gave up 14 points. That's the difference in the ball game.
Right.
They lost by 4. That's the difference. You didn't turn the turnovers into points, and when you turn the ball over, you gave up touchdowns.
Teams, there's all the stats on teams that win the turnover battle typically win the game. That's because a lot of times teams that are winning that turnover battle are getting those turnovers and making them into points. Yeah. And we did a lousy job of that last year. We turned the ball over, or
got a takeaway.
We get a takeaway, end up on the 15-yard line, gain 1 yard in 3 plays, and kick a field goal.
Yeah.
Not turning those. That's 4 more points we could have had on the board. We need those.
The first 2 turnovers against the 49ers. Now, granted, it was also, Rudolph's first start, and it was on the West Coast against a team who you didn't know how good they were at the time. But I know. But I'm just saying, I understand that you can say, well, but when you get 2 straight turnovers in field goal range, but I'll be honest with you, the reason I'm bringing up the whole Rudolph's Rudolph's first start, and it's on the West Coast, isn't as much about Rudolph as it seemed like their philosophy was when they got those 2 turnovers. They got those 2 turnovers, and they're like, we're in field goal range. We've got to make sure we get our 3 points. No, you should have been making sure you got 7. So just the way it is.
Yep. I know.
So it's just, I mean, in those 2 drives, they had 1 first down. So they made it a shorter field goal for one of them. But think about it. If you can all but guarantee your extra point, and you get 2 turnovers inside the 30-yard line, and you're like, let's just make sure we get our field goals for both of them, that's fine. Or let's say you get aggressive, and let's say you score 1 a touchdown, and you turn it back over on the other one. You're still 1 point to the good.
Correct. You're still 1 point to the good.
So that's, that was just, I don't really know what their philosophy was. I don't know if that was on the players or if that was Coach Tomlin calling out I don't know if he'd really, call out a coordinator like that. So, but I think those are 3 pretty good ones. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to turn it over to the live chat. So, because I'll be honest with you, I haven't been really paying that much attention. We had another super chat back there, didn't we? I hope I didn't lose it.
Yes, we did.
So I got to bring it. Here we go. BSG 74 throws $4.99 into the tip jar. Says, what are the chances the Steelers will play 5 preseason games and be on Hard Knocks this coming season? Shockingly, the chances, if you want to know the chances for both, shockingly, the odds are quite well that both will occur.
Yep.
I would say the bigger odds are on the 5 preseason games that they will be in the Hall of Fame game. And it's unfortunately, once again, Donnie Shell is going to get screwed over again because the special centennial class of the what's the name for them? The other ones are the bottom line is the guys that have been out of the league for 25 years or more. Those special ones that they announced that Donnie Shell's part of, they're not getting inducted until a special thing in September. So they're not on the regular Hall of Fame weekend stuff because there's just so much time, not enough time to do all that stuff. But with both Troy Polamalu and Bill Cowher, you can all but guarantee that the Steelers are going to be playing in that game. Also, that the fact that the Steelers are eligible for Hard Knocks, the only way I don't see the Steelers being on Hard Knocks is if the Rooneys have so much pull with the league that they're saying, don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to make me mad. Don't do it. That's the only way I don't see it happening because HBO wants a team that people are going to tune in for. And what's one of the best teams for the people to tune in for? The Pittsburgh Steelers. And they haven't been eligible before because they hadn't missed the playoffs 2 years in a row since that was the stipulation. So if they're ever going to be on it, I hope they're not eligible next year. Also because you have to have 2 straight years to not make the playoffs, and you can't have a brand new head coach. So those are the stipulations, just so you all know. But I would say if you could parlay that bet right there, that would be a decent parlay bet to have both things occur. That's just my opinion, but I'm going off of the opinions that I've heard from others. So I've never seen Hard Knocks, not one episode ever. But if it's the Steelers, I guess I'm going to have to watch it. So at this point now, I'm going to say it. If there's any questions or comments, I'm saying questions in the live chat, but if you want to throw out your points of emphasis for 2020, serious points of emphasis. If they're not, if you're going to say like, don't get hurt. No, that's not a point of emphasis. Win more games. I think the goal is to win every game. Have you ever thought of a time where a team went out on the field and they still didn't want to win the game? I mean, maybe if they were trying to tank for a pick, but I've never seen the Steelers do that. So
typically you don't see players do that. You might see coaches put players out there that they don't think they can win, but typically when guys go on the field, they play to win the game.
Yeah. I can't remember this right off the top of my head, but we have a question here from Nightwolf. I brought up Wes's instead. Hold on. I'll come back to you, Wes. Nightwolf wants to know, is Tuitt in a contract year? I am very certain that he is not. So that because I'm extremely certain that he's not, because Stephon Tuitt is one of those players that if you were to cut him now, he would cost more on the salary cap than he would if you kept him. So because of that has to do with the number of years left on his deal. So I'm pretty sure he's still got a couple more left. So X wants to know, can the Steelers opt out of Hard Knocks, and do the Steelers get revenue from Hard Knocks? No, they can't opt out. If you're there, if the league tells you you're there, the question is, does the league really want to tell a team that doesn't want to be there that they have to be, especially if it's the Steelers, but they still could. And do they get revenue from it? I don't know the answer to that question. I couldn't tell you. I don't know that they do. You get airtime, which is generally pretty good. Wes, he has a point of emphasis. This is the one I clicked on accidentally before, so now we're back to it. He says, reduce penalties overall, maintain gap integrity better in the rush defense. I saw him bring that up earlier about that with the gap integrity. That's something that they could definitely emphasize when it comes to the run game. The biggest problem is when we're watching on TV, we don't always know who's responsible for what. That's really difficult because we don't know the defensive call. So to say sometimes that, oh, so-and-so should have made the tackle. Oh, well, why did Cam Hayward, go around his guy to the other side when the running back was coming that way? Well, that might have been his responsibility. But the other thing you also do as a player is when you feel yourself being blocked one way, you're supposed to fight back the other way. We used to do a drill when I was coaching that specifically did that. We would send a player into a gap where the player was trying to block the other player was trying to block them that way. So they would have to fight, let's say to the right, to that gap, and then feel the pressure and then have to fight back left to where they were. Just because of that's kind of how things go. But gap integrity is a big thing. I didn't notice it a ton this past year, but that's if that's something they need to improve, that could very well be. And I'm going to trust Wes that he knows what he's doing. Sasori wants to know if I said that right, or is it Sassori? I don't know. Hilton, Bud, and Hargrave. Well, we talked about Bud at the beginning of the show, that the rumor is that he will be franchise tagged. So there's that. Hargrave, because of how much he's going to command on the open market. What do we say about that, Rich?
We said that chances are he will go. We will try. We may offer him a team-friendly deal, but
they just can't.
Chances are someone else will pay him more and he will leave.
Oh, yeah. Offer him a team-friendly deal, but we still have to ask with what money.
Right.
And that's going to be the deal with him. Hilton, I just did an article, what's today, Tuesday? It was out yesterday about just one of those kind of fun things. 2 restricted free agents, both could be right around a second round tender. Who you could only tender one of them. Who's it going to be? Mike Hilton or Matt Filer? So the real answer to that is you got to find the money to tender both of them. So Mike Hilton, all they have to do is offer him the tender. Even if he goes out, let's say they do a second round tender on Hilton. If he goes out, finds another deal, the Steelers could match the deal and keep him. Or if they let him go, then that other team has to give up that round draft pick back to the Steelers that they tendered him at. If he doesn't find a deal anywhere, then the Steelers are paying him the tender amount designated for what they said. If it was second round, first round, or original round, Hilton or Filer, neither one of them were drafted. So an original round tender would basically just be a right of first refusal, meaning they couldn't get compensation back. But gotcha. So that's that. Whoa, there went my live chat. It just skipped. So we're getting some answers to some of the other questions. So Youngin said about the Steelers were on Hard Knocks 2 years ago. I know people say you can watch them on YouTube. The Steelers were not featured on. They were not the feature. They've never been the featured team on Hard Knocks. There we go. Michael O'Malley says we need to get a better job getting push from the offensive line. That's particularly on run plays,
That
which goes right
into the running,
right into what you said. Yep. That's something that would really help. Yeah,
there's two things, right? There's two things that relate. So I'm saying we need to be better at the running game. Maybe you get a little more specific, a little bit more specific, saying, "Hey, we need to get better push."
Yeah, because that's the thing with owning the line of scrimmage. If you're pushing the defense 2 yards down the field, that's 2 extra yards the running back has before they have to worry about, the hole and breaking tackles or anything like that. If you're only maintaining the line of scrimmage, then you've got to open up a hole just to get a gain. And that's why I think the Steelers had so many no gains or negative yards rushing last year. So someone wants to know here, the BSG 74, does Ben need more reps this preseason? Does he need them? Probably. Is he going to get them? Probably not, because they're not going to want to push him too much.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him play a series or two.
Yeah. So maybe he gets action in more than one game.
Yeah.
That might, but it's not going to be extended at all. Joe wants to know, how about emphasizing tight end play, using in the passing game, smart use in the run game? Yeah, because the Steelers have a lot of question marks at tight end, what they're going to do there. So that's definitely something. I didn't want to go into the tight. I thought about tight end as a point of emphasis, but there's so many question marks with who their personnel is going to be.
Right.
It's kind of tough to hit that one. So some people just saying about, I thought someone here had answered about Nightwolf said, how about that great punting game we have? Honestly, because we said about kicking, the Steelers punting game through the first probably even 3 quarters of the season was pretty good.
Was pretty solid.
But it not just the fumbles and the debacle at the end of the season, just even the punts in general really fell off towards the end of the year. So if we were having this conversation mid-season last year, punting would have been a pleasant surprise. But it really did it really did fall off towards the end of the year. So Wes answered this. I thought this was the answer, but I didn't want to say for sure. Tuitt has 3 years left, so on his contract. So that's the one thing with that's going on. And I'm finally catching up to what people were saying from long ago. So this is a good question. We'll say this: does TJ Watt increase his sack total again? Wow. This is from Delta Marsh. Does he go up? I mean, you get to a point where there's so much you do, and you're like, can you really keep improving that much every year?
If you made me put money on it, I'd take the under, just because that's probably more likely. However, that doesn't mean that he can't do it. I just think it's more likely that he doesn't increase it.
That wouldn't you be ecstatic just getting the same number from him?
Put it this way. I told you I'd take the under, and I would love to lose that bet.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, but here's the thing. A lot of that's going to depend on who else is playing up front for the Steelers. You could say, does it really depend on Bud Dupree? A little bit. Honestly, you know what could really help with that? Is getting back a healthy Stephon Tuitt.
Yep. When you can put Tuitt and Hayward out there together.
Tuitt, Hayward, Watt. I mean,
oh my gosh, that's pretty formidable right there.
Yeah, that's why some people are saying don't break the bank on Dupree. You could get somebody else out there that's serviceable for a lot less, just because they're going to do well just because of how good the other guys are out there.
Yeah.
So, but do you really want to take that chance? Do you really want to mess with the defense? That's a lot of questions to ask.
Yep.
Let's see. What else can we find here? So here we go. Delta Marsh was the over-under and how many games James Conner misses.
I don't know. 4.5.
4.5. Yeah.
Well,
you know what?
Every time you're betting over, under, you put it at the half. So
you got to put the hook out there for him.
Or does he miss 5 games? He probably misses.
My number's 4. So
I would say 3 to 4 is where I figure he'll probably miss. question is, are we okay? Some people aren't going to be okay with that. If we've got the right guys out there, possibly, I don't see it necessarily hurting us too bad. Especially if we get if we have a near what we're used to Ben Roethlisberger back under center, that becomes less of an issue probably.
Yeah.
Um,
And
we'll
it
see.
really depends on, do you see the second-year jump from Benny Snell?
Yep. If you get the good second-year jump from Benny Snell, that number for Connor possibly gets down because you see Snell taking some more carries away from Connor, and he's not taking such a beating.
You take some of the carries away from Connor before he gets injured, not having to do it because he's injured. But like I said, only 12 NFL teams last year had their leading rusher play in all 16 games. Right. That's just the nature of the position. Steelers, Pittsburgh, chance of Bug stepping up. I'd like to see it. We talked about it. Was it last week or the week before? It was last week.
Last week
when we talked about what's going to happen for the defensive line. What's going to be the deal? Who's going to step up? Who's going to do something? What's the plan going to be at nose guard? When they need one, you got to have someone play it when you need it, although you don't need it very much. Whether it's Bugs, whether you can have Alualu play there. If McCullers is still going to be around, all of those things. So I'm going to try to skip over and try to find some things as I go. I'm trying to read fast.
That's right. They're blowing up the live chat tonight. So
yeah, because I have a question about who will be the QB3 when the season starts. This is how I'm going to answer this question. I hope that, like it has been for the last 17 years, that should never, ever matter. Unfortunately, 2019 it did. I'm hoping it goes another 17 years until that position ever matters again during the regular season. That's my answer with that one.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are saying Paxton. I wouldn't be surprised if it's JT Barrett. Who knows? So thanks, Mean Joe brought up the whole thing that they said that we want Ben to retire a Steeler. That's something that Kevin Colbert said.
You said Ben.
I said Ben. Well, of course, Ben's going to retire. Well, we want Bud to retire Steeler. That's what they say in these things. They want to keep guys around. That's what they want to do. They're showing confidence in their player. That means they're going to do all they can to keep him. But
we want him to.
Yeah, we want him. Yeah,
we want him to.
We just can't break the bank to do it.
When Colbert comments and says we want Bud to retire Steeler, there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Kevin Colbert truly wants to. He wants that to happen. Will the money that Bud's demanding allow that to happen? Is the question.
Exactly. Sometimes guys prices them right out of town. That's exactly what happened with Javon Hargrave. You can't pay a third defensive lineman what he deserves to be paid based on his play when you're already paying Hayward and Tuitt. You just can't. So it's how it is. So I'm finally catching up to where people are saying how many sacks they think TJ Watt's going to get this year. I'm hoping. When Michael Malley said yes, 74, I know he's replying to Steeler fan 74. I would take 74 sacks from the Steelers next year, though. That's interesting. Nightwolf wants to. I'm not going to bring it up there because saying about where I was. He asking about where I find stats like that, or someone else find stats. I don't know which one he's talking about.
As that slid through so quickly, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure which thing I said. I'm so used to repeating numbers. It's kind of just all blurs together. So, got a lot of people high on Paxton Lynch right now.
That guy, everybody's high on him. He was a first round pick and blah, 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 blah. You know what? So is Tim Tebow. Where's he sitting? They play
Not, it's funny because people are like, oh, well, the Steelers said they had a first round grade. Well, they didn't say they had a first round grade. That was implied. If you go back and look at the quote on Mason Rudolph. But you know what? People also had a first round grade on Paxton Lynch because he went in the first round. Sometimes the grade just doesn't matter. You just got to see what players can do. And I think they're going to keep past it. It's not going to be like Brogan Roback last offseason where they didn't even keep him to get to training camp. I think Paxton Lynch will get to training camp and have a chance to show what he can do, as if nothing else, as a thank you for filling in for us last year when we needed you. We'll at least give you a chance in some preseason games to showcase your talent. If you're not going to be our number 3, maybe you can show that you can still be that player for somebody else.
Yep.
I think that would be something that sounds like something the Steelers would do. And maybe he is the number 3. Who knows? So, someone said, ask that. Oh, who said that? Wes? Ask Ryan Leaf what a first round grade is worth.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good one.
Yeah, that's that was pretty nice. So, I think we're ready here to call it a night, bro. For those of you in the live chat, you guys really did really
they
did
were
help
lighting
it
it
along.
up tonight. Lighting it up tonight.
Yeah, but like for those of you, if you didn't hear earlier, this is just we're doing the single show tonight because I'm on location. Just because me being the one having to set everything up, I just don't want to push my connection and things that I was able to do. Man, I had to work every time I was actually in the room today. I had to work just to try to get my internet working properly. And luckily, they had to bypass some stuff to get me all set up here. But you guys get to be the beneficiary of that. So we want to thank you all for joining us tonight. We're still coming at you with the podcasts. With tomorrow night, you should have the standard, Lance and Jeff. Thursday night is the preview. I'm hoping to be on for that show. It all depends on what time Jeff wants to start the show, which always comes down to what time his kids go to sleep. Is what time we start the preview on Thursdays. So if it starts earlier, I might not be on for both shows, but I'll be there for at least the second one. And then Friday night, you have Lance's I said it. Saturday's burning question will be me back in my regular studio before. I don't even know if I told you about this, bro. If anyone out there is heading to the Penguins game Sunday, I'll be there.
Oh, you dog, you go into the Penguins game.
Hey, a long time ago, I offered for you to go to this Penguins game too, if you remembered. But that was before Christmas. But,
that's right. But we weren't sure. Yeah. There were reasons why I couldn't.
Yeah.
I could now.
Yeah. Well, hey, go on and find some tickets. Hey, I'm going to have my 8-year-old wanted to go to his first game. So we're driving up to Pittsburgh to do that. I'm pretty sure it's a 1 o'clock or 1:30 game. It's, right about going to same as going to a 1 o'clock Steeler game. So I'll be in Pittsburgh. Hey, if anyone wants to go be at the game, reach out to me. Go to behindthesteelcurtain.com. Just click on any of my articles, my email and Twitter's right there. I think we're in the very front row in the attack once end of the stadium. So basically, front row of the upper deck. So we're basically where you and I went a couple years ago for my birthday, where it's straight up to the upper deck, but in the very front of it. Yeah. So I got sidetracked to talk about Penguins. So Sunday, the Homer and Hater show is going to be on, but I'm not going to be anywhere close to that because once again, I'll be at the Penguins game. Brian and Tony will be back next Monday for whatever they're calling their show. And you and I will be back on next week with, if everything's set up right, special guest. And I'll tell you guys now, we're going to be trying to talk some salary cap numbers about what the Steelers can and can't do and what their best bet would be with stuff. Anything else you want to say to close out stuff tonight, bro?
No, just thanks to everybody for coming out. And like I said, being active out there in the live chat. It's fun to see everybody out there and what even stuff we don't get to. Fun to see what comes up and people talk about.
Yeah, it's been interesting. And I'm just so glad I was able to do the show and everything. So once again, if you get the chance, please, the best thing you can do for us, go in, like the video, good reviews on the podcasts. That's the best thing you could do. And of course, make sure you're checking out behindthesteelcurtain.com. We're still churning out content for you all off season. So thanks for joining me again tonight, bro. And tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. Thanks for geeking out with us.